Welcome back to Combat Sports Weekly. This is the part of the show where we take a look at both the national and local headlines. Let's jump right into the national ones. Former UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones avoids jail time. Recently, Jones pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an accident, a fourth-degree felony, and was awarded a conditional discharge. He was sentenced to supervised probation of up to 18 months by Judge Charles Brown, obviously here out of Bernalillo County. He let Jon Jones know that he got extremely guilty, and part of Jon Jones' probation involves visiting 72 schools and combat sports gyms across the city and the state of New Mexico. We'll see how soon it takes him to take care of that, and of course, what it means for his return to the UFC. We'll be tackling that here in the roundtable. As far as his old title, the light heavyweight championship, Daniel Cormier and Alexander Gustafsson threw down in a pretty good fight at UFC 192 in Houston this past weekend. Daniel Cormier winning this one by split decision, keeping that title in his first defense. It was a very competitive fight, but ultimately it was the pressure put on by DC that a lot of people feel want him to fight. Combat Sports Weekly scored the fight 3 rounds to 2 in favor of Cormier, so we did agree with the judges' decisions. As far as another guy, and he actually didn't need a decision, Adrian Broner was victorious this past weekend on Showtime in a fight against Khabib Alikhachev via 12th round TKO. A very good performance to win the vacant WBA super lightweight title. How this guy got another title shot after, losing a couple of fights, it's pretty interesting, but nonetheless, the 140-pound division is where most experts and, a lot of us feels he belongs at. This is Adrian Broner's 4th world title. Again, that's 4, and the guy's, I think, only 24 years old. We move into MMA news. Fedor Emelianenko, his opponent for the New Year's event has been named Jadeep Singh. For a lot of you guys that don't know who he is, the guy's 6'5". He sports a record of 1-0 in MMA, but does hold a pretty impressive kickboxing record of 40-10. Singh's only victory is against a guy who's winless, 0-2. So we'll see how much hype this fight ultimately continues to garner as the days go by before it. Kind of disappointing on who the opponent is, but nonetheless, that's the match that has been made so far. In other news, Jorge Linares, my favorite boxer, will be fighting this weekend in his home country of Venezuela. He'll be defending the WBC lightweight title against Ivan Cano. For those of you here in the U.S. hoping to watch the fight, good news. The fight will air on ESPN3. It will be the main event on the card, and it's likely to take place later in the evening around 9:30 our time, with the undercards for that one starting off at 6:30. Just a heads up, it'll be broadcasted all in Spanish. So for those of you that don't speak Spanish, you'll understand at least the punches. But let's jump right into the local headlines now. He was our guest today here on Combat Sports Weekly. Donald Sanchez, again, will be facing Arizona's Nick Rhoads. Both guys are currently scheduled to be the main event on October 17th, Jackson's MMA series card at Buffalo Thunder. Tickets are on sale at tickets.com and run between $35 to $75. This will be Sanchez's, as crazy as it sounds, he's 31 years old, and it will be his 46th fight of his career. Unbelievable, and gave us a really good interview, so you guys make sure to stick around to check that out. More news from that card, and a pretty good, well-matched fight with a couple of local guys. Javier Palacios is finally, getting back into the cage. It's been a while since we last seen him. He'll be taking on Dorian Dixon. This fight was added this week to that Jackson's MMA series card. Again, October 17th. Palacios 3-0. Dorian Dixon 3-1 with Kajukenbo background in what's expected to be a very, very competitive fight. I personally like it. Both guys are very, very good, talented fighters, and it's a good fight for a couple of local guys. More news here locally. Fit NHB's Ray Borg has cracked the top 10 for the UFC division. Again, he's, of course, a member of that flyweight division. Borg, incredible, talented wrestler, jiu-jitsu practitioner, whatever you want to call it. The guy's just scrappy, and it's a great sign to see that, just a little less than 2 years with the UFC, he's breaking the top 10, potentially setting up for a title run here in 2016. So it'll definitely be an exciting year for him to come. In more local news, we go down to Las Cruces. Agustin Banegas is scheduled to be the main event at the Beverly Hills Hall, same evening, October 17th, as at Jackson's MMA card. But again, this one's taking place at Beverly Hills Hall in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Agustin, very good, talented technical boxer, trained by Louis Burke, former trainer of Austin No Doubt Trout, of course, the last world boxing champion out of New Mexico. We'll have more information on this card in the next week, so for the next episode, we'll make sure to have that fight card broken down. More news south of New Mexico. El Paso, King of the Cage Thunder is taking place. I mean, they're on fire. The Socorro Entertainment Center is slowly becoming an MMA mecca here in the region. Undefeated flyweight prospect Jerome Rivera is expected to be on that card against a very tough Jesus Urbina. So again, that fight card, I should say, it's taking place on Halloween, October 31st, the Socorro Entertainment Center, King of the Cage Thunder. We move back up here to Albuquerque, where RFA 32 participant Landon Venata will be facing Chad Curry. Venata, pretty talented guy, 6-0 out of Jackson's MMA, will be fighting Curry in essentially his hometown there in Minnesota. Curry is an undefeated prospect, 7-0. This is a very, very, very big fight for both guys' career. RFA has recently been seen as a pipeline for a lot of fighters to the UFC. So this is a very important fight for Landon Venata, who's had trouble getting fights over the last year and a half. So hopefully for either one of these guys, gets them over the hump into the UFC. That'll do it for the local and national news. Let's jump right into the highlights. We start off with the UFC this past weekend. Daniel Cormier, look at this takedown. Whoop! Alexander Gustafsson took that, though. He was expecting, he found a way to land properly. And this was surprising. Gustafsson's ability to actually take him down, and Cormier being able to hang, his own here with Gustafsson in the stand-up. I think a lot of that evading confrontation, some people call it running, kind of cost Gustafsson. You saw that quite a bit. There's the split decision announcement for Daniel Cormier. Here's another fight that was, let's say, a little lackluster, especially just showing how much this meant to each guy. Rashad Evans and Ryan Bader. Bader was able to outpoint Rashad Evans. This one, I'd say by Rashad Evans's standards, this was a subpar performance on his part, despite the fact that he tried to do everything he could. It's just it's not the Rashad Evans that we're used to seeing. A lot of athleticism and speed. Ryan Bader continues his ways here and hopefully fights for a world title if John Jones doesn't come back. It was a pretty good fight this weekend between Lucas Matthysse and Victor Postol. Here's what everyone was extremely surprised about. Postol's ability to outbox Lucas Matthysse is just beautiful. You'll end up seeing a combination here that ends up forcing Matthysse to take a knee down. Look at that right hand. Take a knee. And surprisingly, I don't think any of us ever expected to see this. Lucas Matthysse taking the 10 count. Victor Postol remains undefeated. Broner and Khabib here. Just a really good performance for Adrian Broner. And, not that that Khabib had any, wasn't in this fight at all, but that standing up just in front of Adrian Broner, bad defense from Khabib, just ended up being a technical display by Adrian Broner there in front of his hometown fans of Cincinnati, Ohio. Adrian Broner, again, 4th world title. That'll do it for the highlights. Joining us next will be Donald Sanchez. Stay tuned.